Hi, I'm Danica Fine with Confluent, and it is time for a technical challenge set by the Apache Kafka community. So today I've been asked to make the Apache Kafka 3.7 release complete with updates from Kafka Core, Kafka Streams, and Kafka Connect. Now, that's a lot of components, and I've never made this before, but I've been provided with some rough instructions, so how hard could this be? Let's get started. All right, where do we start? Step 1, cover updates from Kafka Core. I know this.
We'll start with KIP 7.1.4. Having the ability to monitor your Kafka cluster is important, but equally important is being able to monitor your Kafka clients, especially when those building these clients may have a limited understanding of Kafka. KIP 7.1.4 gives operators better visibility to the clients connecting to their cluster by exposing a number of client-level metrics. These metrics are already collected by the clients themselves, so the KIP provides a means for them to be received by the cluster. Now, a few client configurations were added in order for KIP 7.1.4 to work, and that's where KIP 1000 comes in. KIP 1000 gives us the ability to list out, update, and delete the configurations that are necessary to enable the cluster to receive the client metrics. It uses the existing RPCs and Kafka configs tools to do so. Next up for Kafka Core is an early access release of KIP 8.4.8, which quite a few of you may have been waiting for. This KIP introduces the next generation of the consumer rebalance protocol to make it more efficient. A lot of the complexity of the rebalance protocol is removed from the consumer itself and instead placed on the consumer group coordinator. And when it comes time to upgrade your consumers, you can do so without any downtime. Give it a try. Also in Kafka Core updates is KIP 9.5.1. When the leader of a partition changes for any reason, such as a cluster role, leader election, or reassignments, the time it takes to discover this leader can significantly increase the latency of produce or fetch requests. KIP 9.5.1 optimizes this process by including the updated partition leader information in the produce or fetch response object, reducing the time it takes for this metadata to reach the client. With the completion of KIP 9.7.5, you'll find a brand new, official JVM-based Apache Kafka Docker image for you to use. This new image will make testing and deployment faster and hopefully make it even easier for new users to get started with Kafka. Tiered storage has been a hot topic in Kafka, with KIP 4.0.5 being early access as of version 3.6. For those of you making use of tiered storage, KIP 9.6.3 adds new metrics to make it even easier for you to monitor the performance of this feature. Next, we have KIP 5.8.0, which adds exponential backoff for Kafka client retries. This KIP specifically tries to address a common problem that occurs with Kafka clients where, after an event such as a broker failure, all of the clients attempt to reconnect and fetch metadata. As you can imagine, with all of these metadata requests happening at the same time, this can lead to some of the client's requests failing. And any client retries would happen at more or less the same time, thus exacerbating the problem. Exponential backoff should help to eliminate this. To round out the Kafka Core updates, we have a few KIPs pertaining to KRaft mode clusters. First up is KIP 8.5.8, which closes one of the last remaining gaps in KRaft functionality by allowing JBOD-based deployments to use KRaft mode in production. With the addition of KIP 8.9.6, you'll notice that some client requests from earlier versions will be marked as deprecated, specifically versions older than Apache Kafka 2.1. To help you know if you're using older request types, this KIP also adds new metrics. By Apache Kafka 4.0, expect support for these client request versions to be completely removed. Then we have KIP 9.3.8. This KIP adds even more metrics to help you monitor the performance of your KRaft-enabled cluster, including metrics for the number of active controllers, the current metadata version, the number of broker heartbeats that timed out since the controller has started, and more. Check out the docs for more information. And rounding out our Kafka Core updates is KIP 9.7.9, which also affects KRaft mode clusters. When running KRaft mode, it's possible that a Kafka cluster process and a KRaft controller process could be running on the same machine. If an operator tries to stop one of these processes, they would use Kafka server stop, but this would result in both processes stopping. KIP 9.7.9 alters this script to accept a process name or node ID so that operators can stop the processes independent of one another. Another quick but important KIP for Kafka Core is KIP 1013. In this update, Java 11 will be marked deprecated. You can expect support to be completely removed in Apache Kafka version 4.0.
Right, that wasn't so bad, so let's move on. Hopefully the next step is a little more descriptive. Step 2, include updates from Kafka Streams. All right, never mind. Let's do it anyway.
For Kafka Streams, our first update is KIP 9.2.5, rack-aware assignments for Kafka Streams tasks. You might remember this KIP from the previous release where only one of the assignment strategies was implemented. In this release, the second assignment strategy was added, so now you have the ability to assign rack-aware tasks using min traffic or balanced subtopology. Next is KIP 9.5.4. This KIP builds on KIP 5.9.1 and allows users to provide a default state store provider for their custom stores. As part of this change, a new interface has been provided along with implementations for RocksDB and in-memory stores. KIP 9.8.8 seeks to make standby tasks a little more transparent by adding a new interface with callbacks for standby task functionality. Now you can have callbacks for when state stores are registered, when record batches are loaded, and when updates stop. This change is useful for various operational use cases, such as implementing rolling restarts. And rounding out the Kafka Streams updates is KIP 9.9.2, which proposes a new query type specifically for timestamped key value stores. Ultimately, this change eliminates inconsistencies across queries by allowing queries of regular stores to return just the value, and queries of timestamp stores to return a value and timestamp object. In addition to KIP 9.9.2, a number of other improvements have been made to interactive queries in this release, including KIP 9.6.0, KIP 9.6.8, and KIP 9.8.5.
All right, we are almost there. Feel like I'm on a roll now. Step 3, bring it all together with the Kafka Connect KIPs. Okay, time for assembly.
First for Kafka Connect is KIP 9.7.6. In a previous release, KIP 4.9.5 allowed users to dynamically change the log level of individual workers in their Connect cluster. Unfortunately, there are some situations where the exact worker may not be known, or updating each worker individually would be inefficient. KIP 9.7.6 allows for dynamic log level changes to be broadcast to all workers across the cluster in a single update. KIP 9.8.0 adds new functionality to allow connectors to be created in an initial state other than running. Prior to this change, only existing connectors could be in a stopped state, and all new connectors would begin in a running state by default. This KIP adds a new optional initial state configuration for new connectors, thus enabling a number of use cases around connector migrations. And finally, we have KIP 9.5.9, which adds a BooleanConverter to Kafka Connect. The new Boolean SerDes implements both the Kafka Connect storage converter and header converter.
Okay, that was a nerve-wracking technical challenge. Probably one of the most difficult ones that I've ever put together, but now it's over. I've placed it on the Gingham altar for you, our judges, to decide what you think of this latest Apache Kafka release. Now, as with other releases, the KIPs that we covered today from Kafka Core, Kafka Streams, and Kafka Connect were just a subset of the KIPs that are included in this release. So if you want to see what other features are included in Apache Kafka 3.7, check out the release notes or head on over to the Confluent blog for more information. And as usual, I look forward to hearing what you build.